happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is meteorologist Heather Kay, and it's time for our daily hail forecast, sponsored as always by C3 Group, Merlin Law Group, American Contractors Show, as well as Atlas Roofing. Thank you guys for sponsoring our videos. So let's get right into our weather headlines. We do have a chance to see some spotty hail as well as a better wind chance today in the Great Lakes region, so we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And then getting into tomorrow, there's no risk at this time, but we will look at where storms are still possible. Things can always change in the world of weather, so we'll talk about that briefly. And then we will also jump into what's going on with the heat dome, as well as touch briefly on what's going on, why the tropics are quiet. So we'll talk about all of that in just a moment. But first, let's get right into yesterday's storm reports. We did see a good amount of activity in the northern part of the U.S., but we're going to jump right up there first. Lots of wind reports. There were some hail reports as well. A lot of the hail reports that you see here were below severe limits. I just want to mention that. But yeah, a lot of activity here from South Dakota into Minnesota, Wisconsin, here into Michigan, southward into Iowa, and then some scatter reports here in the southeast. You can see a few here in North Carolina, as well as down into Florida, westward into Missouri and Arkansas, as well as into northeastern Kansas, and basically some of the same deal here in Idaho down into western Colorado. So here are our current conditions across the lower 48. We do have a system that we will be watching basically from now until later on this evening for severe weather. It's along ahead of this cold front here, so we're going to zoom on in here first. We have some stronger storms from the lower parts of Michigan westward to southern Wisconsin, down into parts of western Illinois. And this will all continue to move off to the east as we continue to go through the rest of this afternoon and evening. And then we do have a few pop-up storms starting to form here from eastern Georgia into western South Carolina. These could pose some marginally severe wind gusts as we go through this afternoon and evening. And basically the same deal out here in Arizona, where we'll be watching basically from Tucson up to Phoenix for some scattered wind gusts as well. So let's zoom back out and look at our current temperatures. You can see where that front is. It is 87 in Minneapolis, 88 in Fort Wayne. Behind this system, you can see those cooler colors there. And you go into the central and southern plains, we are once again starting to heat back up, where temperatures are in the mid-90s already. In Dallas and Houston, you guys are both at 95 right now, and 89 down in Miami. So really warm here in the central and southeast part of the country, and cooler behind that cold front. In terms of our dew points, extremely sticky, humid, uncomfortable. We have a 74-degree dew point here in Chicago, as well as St. Louis, a 72-degree dew point down in Atlanta, 73 in Miami, 76 in New Orleans. So a lot of humidity, a lot of heat available for those storms to feed on as we go through this afternoon and evening. So here is our future radar. There are a few of them here. We're going to start in the Great Lakes region, which is where we're expecting the best chance for severe weather today. There are some storms ongoing, like we just saw in Michigan, down into parts of Wisconsin and Illinois, westward into Iowa. Those will continue to move off to the east as we go through this afternoon, and as we continue to build up that heat and humidity and the instability, those storms will fire up along ahead of that cold front. This is at 4 p.m. Central Time, so 5 p.m. Eastern Time. They will continue to track to the east. So Detroit, you have a good chance to see some severe weather rolling on through around 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Chicago, for the most part, you should be okay, although you can see some more storms that may try and fire later on this evening in Wisconsin. and this main line will continue to track off to the east and start to weaken as it crosses into Ohio. More storms, though, as we go into central Illinois down into Missouri, as well as a few other isolated storms could fire up in southern Iowa. And all this activity will continue to slowly track off to the east as we go into later in the evening and into the overnight hours. Some heavier storms are possible in St. Louis as we get into those late night hours and into daybreak tomorrow morning. We could see some more storms trying to fire up as we start our morning commute tomorrow morning. So keep that in mind. We're going to go a bit further south here to take a better look at areas such as St. Louis, westward to Kansas City. So right now we are okay, but as we go into later on this afternoon, we're going to stop this at around 8 p.m. Central Time. Those storms will be firing up here in St. Louis. We could see some severe weather rolling on through around 8 p.m. Central Time, give or take an hour, because this is just a model run, you guys. And as we continue to go through later in the evening, this activity will slowly move off to the southeast, and you can see that what we call training of storms. Basically, these storms will be going over the same areas, and they'll be taking their jolly old time doing so. So we could see some flooding in these areas as well, which we do not need, as we've seen plenty of rain in this region just within the last week. But yeah, you can see these same areas over and over again. We'll continue to see those heavier showers and storms as we go into the overnight hours and as we begin our morning tomorrow. There'll still be some lingering storms possible in the southern St. Louis metro area, but as we begin our morning tomorrow, a lot of that will be to your south. So now let's check out Georgia and South Carolina. We did see a few storms already popping up in this area. That will continue as we get into this afternoon and into the evening. You can just see these pop-up variety storms here. So some gusty winds are possible with these, and as we go into later on in the evening, they will continue to push off to the west here, and for the most part, they should start to lessen in intensity as we lose that heating of the day. And you can see as we get into tomorrow morning, this particular model run is saying most of that activity will be pretty much gone. So lastly, let's go to Arizona. Basically the same deal that we saw in Georgia and South Carolina. We will be watching from Tucson to Phoenix for these pop-up storms here to produce some isolated gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That activity will continue to do so as we go through the evening and into the overnight hours. Some heavier rain possible here from Phoenix down to Tucson. So let's break it all down. Here is today's hail forecast. We're not expecting a very large hail today, as I think it's going to be more of a wind threat, but anywhere from $1/4 to $1/2 size hail is possible with any of those storms that do stay isolated, from Detroit down to as far west as possibly Chicago, down to St. Louis, westward to Kansas City. So again, it's going to be, I think, pretty isolated, but if we can get those storms to stay by themselves, up to $1/2 size hail is possible with those storms. And then with our wind, we do have a few other areas, but our main area is once again here in the Great Lakes region, where we are expecting a line of storms to fire up within the next few hours. The best chances to see anywhere from 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts will be basically from Detroit to Chicago down to St. Louis. There is still a lower end chance though for areas such as Fort Wayne, Madison down to Kansas City. So across this region, again, we can see anywhere from 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, and then some spotty gusts up to 60 miles per hour are possible with any of those pop-up storms here from Columbia, South Carolina down to Savannah, Georgia, and same deal out in Arizona. Some scattered wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour are possible with those pop-up storms from Tucson to Phoenix Arizona. So we're going to jump into tomorrow. At this time, spoiler alert, there isn't a severe risk at this time as there isn't enough. The lift doesn't look really impressive, and just some other conditions just don't look like it's going to be enough for a widespread severe weather event. But we do still have that chance to see some stronger storms tomorrow from, again, Detroit down to Ohio, all the way down to Arkansas. So that's tomorrow morning, and we'll continue to see those pop-up storms as we go through the afternoon. You can see the pop-up variety here. This is at 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and this pattern will continue to do so as we go into tomorrow evening. We can see some stronger storms here in parts of West Virginia, down into Virginia, and that activity will move off to the east and start to die off for the most part as we get into the overnight hours. Some stronger storms may try to fire up, though, in Kentucky as we get into tomorrow night and into Friday morning. So, like I said, at this time, we don't have a hail risk for tomorrow. The conditions just don't look favorable for hail development in terms of wind. There isn't a risk out at this time either, but things can change. But at this very moment, the atmosphere just doesn't look like it's going to have that enough oomph for a widespread severe event tomorrow. Well, like we've been talking about for the last few weeks, we have been dealing with a lot of heat. The good news is that we don't have any excessive heat warnings out. This is like the second or third day now where we haven't had any, which is great. The bad news is that we still have some heat advisories out for a good portion of the central and southern plains up here into the Great Lakes region, as well as into eastern Montana. So once again, make sure if you have to go outside to stay hydrated. So how hot are we in terms of above average? We are anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees above average in a lot of parts across the country. We are a bit below average here in the northern parts of the U.S. And unfortunately, as we continue to go through the rest of the month, this is NOAA's temperature outlook. The chances that we are going to see temperatures above normal are pretty high across most of the U.S., especially here down in the southern parts of the U.S. Really, the only area that will be below average, the chances that will be below average will be here in the lower, the Four Corners region. So it's going to continue to be hot. So here is our future jet stream. We do have this shortwave trough here in the northern part of the country, and this will be the energy that will be needed to spawn that severe weather for today. And as we get into tomorrow, you can see that trough will be getting back up into Canada. So there's a little bit of a wiggle here, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to be strong enough to give us that chance of severe weather tomorrow. But we will be monitoring this for you guys to see if that will be changing for you guys tomorrow in the Ohio Valley into the northeast. And then as we get into Friday, we could see a little bit cooler weather here in the Great Lakes region. That heat dome, though, continuing to dominate in the middle of the country and into parts of the west. And there's another trough that we will be watching as we get into Friday and then getting into our weekend. You can see a little bit of a wiggle here as we get into Friday into Saturday, and that trough moves slowly to the east on Sunday. And then getting into Monday, that trough will be moving off to the east here, and that heat continues to dominate here, unfortunately, in the middle of the country. So we do have a risk for Thursday with that little shortwave trough moving on through. It will be from the Dakotas into parts of very far western Minnesota. So we don't have a risk at this time for tomorrow, but for Thursday, as we get another little trough moving into the U.S., this will be the area that we'll be watching for the potential for severe weather on Thursday. So now we're going to drop in on the tropics. It's been really quiet, and this is why we have all this Sahara dust here coming off of the coast of Western Africa, and this is just showing how dry it is, and this is basically preventing any systems from developing. But as we get into later on into the weekend, you can see that dust that we saw at the very beginning of this run is starting to dissipate a bit. So maybe as we get into the next week or two, we will maybe start having to watch basically from the Atlantic into the Caribbean a little bit more, but at this time there is absolutely nothing in terms of systems to watch. But like I mentioned last week, we are now officially in August. It is August 3rd, and that means we really need to start watching the tropics a little bit more carefully, because climatology wise, this is when things start to pick up in activity. So right now it is quiet, but as we continue through the month of August and entering September, you can see how on average things start to pick up very quickly. So it's dead right now, but how long will that last? Well, on average, maybe not a whole lot longer. So stay tuned as we continue through the month of August. But as of right now, that's all that I have for you. So that make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, where we've been trying to create more fun content for you guys. And if you have any questions, concerns, if you just want to say hi, you can give us a call at 855-334-4245. You can email us at info@hailtrace.com, and check out our website at www.hailtrace.com. And I am meteorologist Heather Kay. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday.